Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel of Godly Alpha. It's your fellow brother on the battlefield, Coach Wulu. And I wanted to reach out this morning and have something that I'm hoping to have whenever the Lord lays it on my heart, entitled "Unscripted Moments." And so, it's nice to have you know whatever messages or motivational videos that God may, lay on my heart at different times and to script out exactly how I want the message to be communicated. But, I think one of the things just in this day and age of the picture perfect Facebook, everything in everybody's life is, on social media always looks so perfect. They got the perfect clothing on, they're eating the perfect food, they're visiting the perfect destinations, and so on and so forth. you know s- so much of people's lives are curated. They're organized to make it look like they got everything in control and everything is going exactly as they would. But I think we're living in a time where people, they're really longing, even if they don't realize it, they're really longing for authenticity. They're longing for genuineness, because there's so much fakeness everywhere, especially with the advent of AI that is only accentuating the you know the generation that we live in, where you can't even tell the difference between what's real and what's fake anymore. So, I want to have these moments called unscripted moments where we it's just the time to just really kind of share with you some stuff that's going on in my life. If you're visiting this channel, I'm assuming because there's something that you have watched that has spoken to you. And so, um, I think you want to know the real me. You want to know, what's going on in my life. What are some of the things that I struggle with? What are some of the fears that I have, And not only those, but what are some of my triumphs? What are some of my joys? But more of kind of a holistic, well-rounded view of my life, and not curating everything to make it look like it is picture perfect, right? As people do, they'll take like 20 selfies until they get the exact one that they like. And I think a lot of people are longing for things in a raw state. And so that's what I want to do. I just want to kind of share with you an experience that I had yesterday. None of this is scripted, so I'm just going to be shooting from the heart. And so yesterday, I was just feeling really overwhelmed yesterday, because I stepped out in faith. Um, I have been, I've been coaching. I've been coaching, essentially during the pandemic. So I started about 5 years ago, and it really even goes beyond that. Let me say that that's some additional training that I took during the pandemic. But my training really began all the way back in 2016. But I took it in earnest and actually started to make it a business during the pandemic, because obviously the world was shut down and I needed to figure out, how to live, how to support my family as a man. And so I stepped out in faith last week and I said, I am involved in so many different things that I'm finding it difficult to rebuild this brand, that this coaching brand that I originally started underneath another name, and I had clients and whatnot, but I scaled down to no clients. I didn't attempt to get any new clients because I was seeking to rebrand the whole thing, and thus out of that came, Godly Alpha. Um, but I stepped out in faith and I said, for the next month and a half, I'm not gonna work. And I am just going to put all of my energies into developing new clientele, people who need the services that I can provide as a life coach and as a master certified health coach. And I'm gonna tell you, if it could go wrong this week, it went wrong. And I found myself just like, having so many things that just wasn't going the way that I wanted to this week. I had all of this stuff that I wanted to accomplish, and it just wasn't happening the way that I wanted for it to happen. And so I found myself just feeling a little overwhelmed yesterday because I was just like, man, Lord, like I stepped out in faith and I only got a month and a half to build up my clientele so that because what I've been doing on the side to support myself when I scaled down my clientele was driving for Uber and Lyft because it's easy. I can do it whenever I want. I can make my schedule, and you make pretty good money. Problem is that when you're trading your time for money, if you want to make more money, that means you have to trade more time. And time is something that we have a finite amount of. You don't get a whole lot of time. And so you only have so many hours in a day, hours in a week, and you can't double or triple the amount of hours that are in a day that are in a week. And therefore, if you want to make more money, you got to you got to make more money per hour so that you can trade less of your time for money. And so anyway, that's one of the problems with Uber and Lyft is while I can make, you know, anywhere from on the low end of 25 up to 30, 40 something dollars an hour, depending on what the events and stuff that may be going on. I got to trade more of my time in order to make more money to cover my expenses. So anyway, not to belabor that point, I struggled a little bit yesterday because I just was like, man, Lord, like I know in like I don't have any, delusions that for the Christian that you're not gonna have trials, that so that's not my hang up. I guess I feel like I've just been trying to push at so many different things for a long time, and I don't find myself getting where I want to get to. And there are a number of different reasons why that is. I think one of the struggles, and I don't know if any of you can relate, one of my struggles is I'm 40 years old, right? I turned 40 last year, I'll be 41 this year. And sometimes there's this struggle with the thought that I should be much further along in life. And those of you who've been listening to my testimony, you know, there's some reason why I'm a late bloomer in life. You know, I know folks that are far younger than me, 10, 15 years younger than me, and they have already attained to things in life that a place that I should have been, already. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Um, but here's a couple things that comes to mind and something that I'm encouraging and have encouraged myself with that I pray will be an encouragement to you because maybe you feel like you're not where you want to be in life. And here are just a couple things that I've been encouraging myself in the Lord with that I pray maybe you'll encourage yourself with. So number one, the apostle Paul talks about, I can't remember exactly what the verse is. I know it's in the book of Corinthians, but the Apostle Paul talks about how it is not wise to compare yourselves with other people. He talks about comparing ourselves amongst ourselves, and he that does this is not wise. And so, it is a fatal trap to compare your where you are in your journey with other people because we all have different backgrounds. We all got, different cards that were dealt to us, different, Some received a better early inheritance than others did. Some received better opportunities. Um, whatever it is that it may be. But at the end of the day, we really can't make comparisons because we're all different people. We all have different journeys. We all come from different backgrounds. But the beauty of it is that I realized, and I was, I was sharing this with somebody, potential client that was interested in working with me about a month ago because he felt that life was so hard and that, so many of his peers are progressing and whatnot. And something that the Lord laid on my heart that I shared with him is I said, it is true that you cannot control the cards that were dealt to you. You don't get a chance to control what family you were born into, what neighborhood you grow up in, whether your family is well structured, a loving family, an encouraging family. You can't control none of that stuff. What intellectual endowments that you will be born with, what gifts you'll be born with. You can't control none of those things, right? So you can't control the cards that you are dealt. But this is what I said to the guy. You do have the opportunity to reshuffle the deck. While you cannot control cards that you were dealt, you can control the reshuffling of the deck. And what I mean by that is this. I get a chance to choose how I will allow the cards that I have been dealt to affect me. You see, you and I have a choice whether the stuff that happened to us in our childhood, whether some of the opportunities maybe that we didn't take advantage of when we were younger, we choose how we're going to allow those things to affect us. We get to choose. And so we can reshuffle the deck and say, you know what? I'm not going to allow the trajectory that my family has been going, my family history, the pattern that my family has followed, the pattern that maybe even I started following before you woke up to realize that there must be something better. You can come to a place to say, I'm not going to allow that to control me. And so, you know, I I just realize that, sometimes, it's amazing how when the Lord gives you a word to speak to somebody else, you're speaking to yourself, right? And so that's one thing I've encouraged myself with in the Lord, that I may not be able to control some of the stuff that happened to me as a child, but I get to control how I respond to that. I get to control where I go from this point forward. I can't control what has happened, where I've come from, but I do get a chance to, in some ways, help to shape the direction that I'm going to go from this point forward. And so that's one thing I've in the past encouraged myself in the Lord with. The second, as I was mentioning to you, about the whole comparison trap, is, we're all in different place. I am further ahead of other people. And there are people that are further ahead than I am. And we all got a different journey. And it's another thing I've just had to encourage myself with, as I mentioned earlier, is just not to fall in the trap of comparing my experience, where I'm at in my journey, with other people. And I'm not saying that that is easy. Sometimes that is really, really difficult, especially, when you got maybe somebody that's 15 years younger than you and they already making like seven figures. You're like, man, scratching head, like, what do I need to do differently, right? So sometimes you have those struggles, but the Bible talks about, you know, taking captive every thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God and bringing that thought into captivity. And so every single thought, every single emotion that is not aligned with the will of God, we got to put down. And I'm not saying that it's going to so easily happen in just a second. Sometimes there's really a war, and it may take a couple of hours where you are just warring with your thoughts, warring with your emotions. And that's kind of like what happened yesterday for me, I just I was frustrated because, I things weren't lining up the way that I wanted for them to happen. And, because I only took a month and a half off so that I could really focus, in my mind, I'm like, man, time is of the essence. But here's another thing that the Lord has encouraged me with in the past that just popped in my head that is a good encouragement. And I created a whole saying behind it too. And that is that false expectations lead to frustrations. False expectations lead to frustrations. When you have expectations about how something should happen, about how something should the outcome of a way that you visualize something take place, and when you expect that it is going to happen the exact way that you are visualizing that it's going to happen, when it doesn't, when that expectation isn't met, it leads you to frustration. And so I had this expectation because I made up my mind that I'm going to focus this week, that I'm going to lock in, as the young folks said, 10 toes down, standing on business, right? And get done what I'm gonna seek to get done this week. I knew there was gonna be trials, but I'm like, man, I just didn't imagine just getting that thrown off this week. And it's amazing because a lot of the stuff that I was thrown off with is stuff that God orchestrated. Whether that was just several times this week where I had to minister to people, and people that reached out to me while I was in the middle of trying to get stuff accomplished. And so, but can I really complain about that? Because if I was in a tough situation, I would want somebody to be able to reach out to, somebody to talk to, um, which, to be perfectly honest with you, that it's something I really need to work on. I'm an inlet, but I really don't have outlets. And what I mean by that is I'm an inlet in that people constantly come to me for counsel, for encouragement, for prayer, but I don't really have a lot of outlets for people that I can reach out to because some of my closest friends, or people that I know, they're kind of in a similar situation. They're inlets and people are constantly reaching out to them. So because I know how that feels, sometimes I don't seek to burden some of the brothers that I know they're in similar situations that I find myself. So anyway, um, you know, I don't do this every morning, but a lot of mornings I wake up, I say, Lord, my day belongs to you. This is what I would like to do, but if that's not what you want for me to do for that day, then my plans belong to you. And sometimes that means that your carefully laid plans are divinely interrupted. And that's something that you just got to be okay with because God knows where you're trying to get to. And God knows, more importantly, where He's trying to get you to. And so, you just got to be okay with the interruptions, even when those interruptions are coming by your own mistakes, because nobody is going to perfectly do everything and without their flaws getting in the way sometimes. And so that's another one that I would share with you. Another one that I would share with you is actually found in Zechariah chapter 4 and verse 10. And that says, do not despise the day of small beginnings. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. And it's interesting when you look at the context of the scripture, it's in, the prophet Zechariah is prophesying during a time, where the temple is being rebuilt. The temple and Jerusalem had been destroyed by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. And but God promised that after 70 years, God was going to turn the captivity of Israel and bring them back into the land. And one of the first things that they had to build was the temple. And you can imagine what a task that was. And so anyway, the Lord was seeking to encourage them because those who were old enough, they remembered what the glory of the former temple looked like, what the glory of Jerusalem looked like previous to that. And the scripture actually says, when they saw the new temple, they wept, because it didn't even compare to what the prior temple had looked. But anyway, Zechariah is prophesying during this time, and he's seeking to encourage Zerubbabel, who is a workman at that time, that is whom God is using to rebuild the temple. And so Zechariah seeks to encourage him, don't despise the day of small beginnings. And one of the things that the Lord was encouraging me with when this verse came to mind yesterday was, when you're in the early stages of something, like, don't despise the process. Don't despise the difficulties that you're going to have to go through in order to get you to where God would have you to be, because it actually is building the type of character that can help you to be sustained in the position that God is taking you to. Is actually helping you to build the mental fortitude, the dependence on Christ, the patience, the perseverance that you will need to make it through other times in your life where it will get heavier and where it will get more difficult. And so that's something I have to remember, and I really have to drill in my mind, because I'm going to tell you this much. From the time that I came to Christ and I woke up to the possibilities that I could be more than just a drug dealer, I could be more than just a rapper, I could be more than just like these low level dreams that I had. When I started to be able to dream more, I realized, like, man, the sky's the limit when it comes to God. But because I was coming to that realization, like, in my late 20s, I felt like I've been trying to play catch up, and I was trying to, all the stuff that I felt that I was behind in, my education, the development of my skills and talents and all of these other different things. I was trying to accomplish them all at the same time, and trying to get them to where I wanted them to all be at the same time. And, there's that old saying that when, that you are a jack of all trades, but a master of none, right? When you try to end up accomplishing too many things at one time, you end up becoming proficient at nothing. And you have all of these things that end up being half done. And so, I remember maybe about a year and a half ago, I was talking to the Lord, and I was like, Lord, why is it that I am not where I want to be in life? How come I'm not getting to where I want to get to? And I just remember the Lord speaking to me, just saying to me, and this is what he said to me. He said, because you start so many things that you don't finish. You start so many things that you don't finish. And there are different reasons for that. But one of the reasons why I was starting so many things that I wasn't finishing was because I was trying to accomplish too much at one time. Too much at one time. Because I realize I'm a late bloomer, and I'm trying to catch up with all of these different things, all of these different areas of life that I feel behind in. But, I realize I've seen from other friends, like, how proficient you can become in something. Not that you don't do nothing else, but when you really concentrate the majority of your energies into a thing, you really become much more proficient at that thing than if you would have been giving a little energy to that and a little energy to this and a little energy to that. You're not really going to become proficient in all of those things. And so, for instance, I got a good brother of mine. His name is Glenn. Shout out to Glenn if you're watching this. And about, I don't know, maybe about 7, 8 years ago, you can correct in the comments, Glenn, if you're watching this. He got into construction, and he has dedicated, not that he hasn't done anything else, but he has dedicated his energies into becoming proficient at that thing. And now, man, he is excellent at it. Not that there's nothing left for him to learn, but he's really good at it now. And I really admire that, because I realize what a man is capable of if he will just stop trying to, put his hand in multiple cookie jars and just say, you know what? I'm gonna focus the majority of my energies in this one area that I believe that God is telling me to focus on. And for me, I really, from the moment that I got into coaching, I really knew that this was that one thing that I really wanted to really devote more of my time and attention to. The problem is I allowed other things to drain away the majority of the energies that I've put into that, because I tell you that I find so much joy in coaching people and in helping them to be able to reach the goals that that they have set for themselves, the vision that they believe that God has given to them. And so I really find great joy in that. And Godly Alpha is something that I just know, like, I know what it feels like to, in being a man, to be able to have a desire to be somewhere in life that you're not, and to need assistance, to need a structure, to need support to help you to get there. And that's why I really love, Godly Alpha, and by God's grace, what I'm seeking to accomplish. And I know that this is what I'm wanting to put my energies into. A part of the problem that I'm struggling with right now is, Jesus said that the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And I have a love for ministry. I have a love for helping people. And I find that whether it's in my local church or whether, other things, I find myself being spread thin, because I see that there's so much work that needs to be done and so few people that are willing to step up to the plate and come up to the help of the Lord as he is trying to finish this gospel commission in the world. So I spread myself thin. And so, but anyway, I don't want to ramble on. This is, these are called unscripted moments. It's not scripted. I don't have any idea what I'm going to talk to you guys about besides maybe the core, and that's just the stress, the feelings of feeling overwhelmed yesterday. That was kind of the catalyst for this discussion. And some of that, again, I'll say this in closing, was because I was trying to record the final segment of my testimony that was supposed to launch this Friday. But I had all of these things kind of pulling me away, getting to bed at late hours, just because pulled in so many different directions. And so this video is just going to be the replacement for my testimony, because I just wanted to share with you that not everything in life that you will hope to accomplish at a certain time will happen the exact way that you want it to, and some of the things that you can do to just encourage yourself when you find that happening. So I'll end this by saying one of the things that I believe so important for us as men that we need to do a better job at, if we're really going to reach the levels in life that God would have us to, is by being in community with other men that are trying to become the man that God have called them to be, just like you. And so I started this WhatsApp group. I think we have just a couple people in there so far, as I'm waiting for several of the comments that I've gotten on social media. I don't know if some of those guys they've reached out, said they wanted to become a part. We responded, allowed them to know um, that the WhatsApp group is up. They probably just need to check their email and see that a message has been sent to them. But anyway, if you want to be a part of that, I would love for you to be a part of it, because I need other brothers in my life too that are on this journey, that are trying to move forward in life. I need an outlet too. And so this WhatsApp is going to be a blessing, as much of a blessing for me as I know that it will be for you. So anyway, blessings to you guys. Thank you for coming on here, just listening to my 30-minute ramblings about just what's going on in my life. And I want to do this more because I say this in closing. I think one of the things that men really struggle with is vulnerability. We really struggle with being able to be open about struggles that we're having in life. And I'm not saying this is all men, but I would probably say, just based on some of the statistics and studies that I've looked at, a great majority of men struggle with being able to share about the struggles that they are having. And so I want to create, with Godly Alpha, I want it to be a space where people feel comfortable being real about the struggles that they're having. And that by God's grace, they may find solutions in community, encouragement, support, advice, and all of the other things that will come with it. So blessings to you, my brothers, and I look forward to continuing to build this community. I look forward to getting to know you brothers even more. I look forward to some of the things that we got in the pipeline. We're going to be having, I'm hoping, I really hope, by God's grace, at the end of this year, I want to have a virtual conference. And then next year, I'm looking to have an in-person men's conference for Godly Alpha. And so if that type of thing interests you, join the WhatsApp group, because that's one of the places where you'll receive more information. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. Hit the notification button so you get a notification whenever a new video drops. Comment, share the video. If you've been blessed by the content that's on this channel, do all of those things, because it shows that you are supporting, that you're not only receiving a blessing, but you're giving a blessing as well. Because by those comments, by those subscriptions, by you sharing, by you commenting, it's actually helping the algorithm to say people are interested in this channel, and the algorithm will share it with more people. So I pray that you'll do that. Thank you so much for reaching out. Even if you're a lady, feel free to subscribe too. You'll learn some things that will be a blessing, and you can share it with the men that are in your life. So it's not just, while this is a channel for men, women, you can be blessed by it as well, and you can use it as a blessing to other men that you have within your sphere of influence. So blessings to you guys. I pray that you have a blessed weekend, and tune in next time. God bless.